Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here Harpreet Singh with the daily analysis of the Hindu from 11th of December 2024. So this is a QR code where you can basically find this particular PDF along with the other material that is required for your preparation. So what all topics we have taken for today's analysis? First, PVTGs, PM POSHAN mission, judicial deferment. From the perspective of the prelims, again, they can be asked in your mains also, but from the perspective of prelims becomes important. ISA, International Solar Alliance. Then you have the Bangalore Principles of Judicial Conduct. Then you have the lipstick effect. Then you have the Earth Award and NHRC. So these are the topics that we are going to study in today's analysis. Let's begin. Mains topics. So this is the article that you have in your The Hindu newspaper today. Mindless purge, Odisha's government decision to seek external loan for PVTG development faces scrutiny. Now, from the perspective of the civil services examination, we have to study what the PVTGs are. See, before we understand what the PVTGs are, let us have a little bit of idea regarding the tribes. See, when we study PVTGs, it is particularly vulnerable tribal groups, right? So that means, first of all, we get to know that these are some form of tribal groups. That is one thing. Prior to that, please understand, we need to understand certain other terms before we move on to the PVTG concept. When we hear the word tribe, we generally come across thinking that these are certain set of groups who are isolated, who are not in the mainstream, who have their own culture, own set of languages, and various cultural constructs. So whenever we talk about a tribe, we generally denote it from the characteristics, and that is why the term tribe is often associated with as a socio-cultural term. Socio-cultural term. But you realize that when we talk about certain groups like scheduled tribes, you realize that these status of scheduled tribe is not given to every tribe. That means every tribe is not under the gamut of the reservation. So there is a word scheduled tribe. Please see. The word scheduled tribe. Now this is basically what? An administrative term. Now please remember, there was a committee known as a Lokur committee, which basically gave the criteria for which tribe should be categorized or considered as a scheduled tribe. And then obviously we have the provisions regarding the president basically with consultation with the governor of a state or the union territory concerned can basically demark or give the status of a scheduled tribe to any tribe. Now this is the thing. But remember, among the scheduled tribes also, you have those tribes which are very vulnerable, even more isolated than the other scheduled tribes, even more sensitive to the various issues and the danger to their culture. So we realize, and which are more backward. So what happens? There is another categorization, which is PVTGs. Now these are the most backward among the tribals. So there was a committee known as Dibhar Committee, which basically recommended which all tribes should basically be categorized as the PVTGs. Now see, tribe is a socio-cultural term. Among them, certain tribes have to be administered. So that is why they're given the status of reservation and various provisions are made. Those are the scheduled tribes. Now, out of those scheduled tribes also, there are some which are very backward and require special attention and to a great extent even isolation from the mainstream administration. So they are categorized as the PVTGs. Now you have got a brief idea of what the PVTGs are. Let's move ahead. If you see, there are approximately 705 scheduled tribes and there are 75 PVTGs. So let's see. About PVTGs, the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Now these are more vulnerable in comparison to the other tribal groups. So what do we see? In 1971, the Bar Commission or even a committee created the primitive tribal groups as a separate category, which is less developed among the tribal groups. In 2006, the government basically renamed them as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So these are the ones which are more backward in comparison to the other tribal groups. Now, criteria for identification as given by the Bar Commission. First, pre-agriculture level of technology, low level of literacy, economic backwardness, and a declining or stagnant population. See, these are the criteria through which you can identify certain tribe as a particularly vulnerable tribal group. Now, please remember, you would be seeing economic backwardness. It is a very relative term. Yes, it is, but then you have to see the various parameters, what a possible income might be, what type of agriculture or non-agriculture societies they are. So that depends upon the analysis and the whims and fancies, obviously, of the government, on basis of which the particular tribe is given the status of a PVTG based on these, which is given by this commission, right? Moving ahead. Next, population. According to the 2011 census, there are 2.8 million particularly vulnerable tribal groups belonging to 75 tribes. Now, across 22,544 villages in 220 districts across 18 states. So a question might come in your examination that, does every state in India have a particularly vulnerable tribal group? No. Why? Because they are only present in 18 states and union territories. So only 18, not all states and union territories. So Odisha has the largest population of PVTGs, again a fact that can be placed in your prelims, and you can be asked also about PVTGs. It is followed by Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, including Telangana. The largest PVTGs in Odisha, that is the Sora community, is an example, with a population of 5,35,000. So this is an important aspect that you need to know about the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Again, the problems that they face are very similar to the other tribals also, like land alienation, poverty, indebtedness. Along with it, we realize danger to their culture because they're coming in contact with the mainstream population. Along with, we realize the problems of alcoholism is also increasing among the various particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Again, they are the concept of barter was something that was very common among them, is again decreasing in significance because we realize with the contact with the mainstream population, the currency and the what we say as rupees is infiltrating their community also. So we realize that a lot of changes are taking place. So they are being suffering because of that. Along with, sometimes we realize that displacement projects that did take place also impacted them. We know that the Forest Right Act 2006 did recognize the forest rights at an individual and a community level. But we know one thing, that before that act, even the particularly vulnerable tribal groups were the ones who were suffering a lot. And that is what is a similar suffering that the other scheduled tribes also faced. But their delineation as a separate category does help even the government to make schemes and policies for them, which are targeted, because these are the ones who are more vulnerable, more backward among the other tribal groups. So this is what the topic of particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So if I talk about the characteristics, now see, as I had told you, that we do not basically identify simple tribals on certain proper definition, because we don't have a proper definition. There are going to be certain characteristics based on which you can identify them. So these are certain characteristics which, again, according to mentioned in the 𝐂𝐃 committee report by Government of India. Now see, what are they? They are mostly homogeneous. That means their culture and there is homogeneity among them. Second, with a small population with 0 or negative growth rate or extremely low level of literacy. This is third. So that means there is 0 or negative growth rate. That means the population is small. Next is extremely low level of literacy, relatively physically isolated. Fourth, social institution cast a simple mold. That means they do not have the complexity in the social relationships that are present. Like, we realize that in today's time when marriages are taking place in our modern day societies, you realize so many complexities come up, so many rituals come up. Those are because of the large number of relationships and complexities in the social relationships. Their societies are very simple, and that is why we say simplicity, and the simplicity in the social institutions are observed. Next, absence of written languages. In most of them, they do not have their own written languages. Dependency on hunting, gathering for food. This is your seventh. And having a pre-agriculture level of technology. Now, these are few characteristics which you can identify a particularly vulnerable tribal group. So this is what you should be knowing from your prelims and the mains perspective. As we move ahead, second topic is topic 2, PM POSHAN. PM POSHAN centered to bear additional cost of this much rupees due to the food inflation. Now, from the perspective of this particular topic, we should be knowing what PM POSHAN basically is. Now see. So in the PM POSHAN Abhiyan, it is very important that this was an initiative again led by the government of India so that the nutritional issues that India is facing, particularly at the level of the school and the children who are facing, because they are the ones who are the future. And various reports came that India is facing, let us say, malnourishment of close to 52% among the children issues. So it was very important to have a proper nutritional and along with the various supplements that should be provided to the children in particular. So we have a POSHAN Abhiyan. Let us see. Coverage. The scheme covers 11.8 crore students enrolled in class 1 to 8 in over 11.2 lakh schools across the country. Primary 1 to 5 and upper primary 6 to 8 school children are currently entitled to 100 grams and 150 grams of food grains per working day each to ensure a minimum of 700 calories. We'll be seeing there's a problem also associated with this particular calorie system, right? Over here, they said this is the amount of calories in the food that should be given at the level of the primary and the upper primary sections. The scheme will be extended to students studying in the pre-primary or the Bal Vatikas running in the government and the government-aided primary schools. Bal Vatikas are basically the preschools that was started by the government school last year to include the children under the 6 years in the formal education system. So we realize that this is again further going down also, that in the initial phase, even before the before the 6 years bracket also, that the children should be given adequate amount of nutrition. That is what is being aimed at, because that is very critical. If you see the child till the age of 5 or 6, the brain development completes. So at that particular moment also, if the nutrition deficiency is there, that tends to impact the IQ level and the proper brain development. And obviously, if the brain development is not proper, it is going to impact the other organs of the body also. So next is nutritional gardens. The concept is there in the POSHAN Abhiyan. The government will promote nutritional gardens in the school. The gardens are being provided to offer additional micronutrients to students. Supplementary nutrition. New scheme has been provision for supplementary nutrition for children, aspirational districts and those in the high prevalence of anemia. Anemia where there is iron deficiency. Even today, if you realize that 53% of the women in India suffer from anemia, that is iron deficiency. And that if you see at the level of children also, that deficiency is very perceptible. And that is why government also has launched the iron folic tablet scheme also. Along with it, they want to have supplements at the school level also, so that the children do not face the issues of anemia. And because when anemia issues happen, then definitely there will be further issues, particularly with respect to girls who later on when get pregnant, they face a lot of problems and complications during that time. So it does away with the restriction on the part of the center to provide funds only for wheat, rice, pulses and vegetables. So that means extra funds can be provided for the supplementary nutrition under the scheme. Currently, if a state decides to add any component like milk or egg to the menu, the center does not bear the additional cost. Now the restriction has been lifted. That means the center will be providing the additional amount if the states also want to add certain other, let us say, food items in the menu, what is being provided to the children. Let us say they want to add egg or milk. Center will be contributing to that. It is not that only the state will bear the burden. Next, Tithi Bhojan concept. Now, Tithi Bhojan concept is being encouraged under the POSHAN Abhiyan. What it is, please see. Tithi Bhojan is a community participation program in which people provide special food to children on special occasions. The concept of community kitchen, the concept of people coming together and giving food to children, even the elderly, this has been a concept of the Indian culture. in this program, when we have incorporated in the PM portion, it basically means that on special occasions, festivals and all, we will be having a community participation where people from the community basically provide food to the children. Now, that is also a means of community participation for increasing the nutritional content in the food, and that is being provided to the children. Next, direct benefit transfer. The central government will ensure direct benefit transfer from states to schools, which will use it for covering the cooking cost. So that means why DBT or direct benefit transfer is there directly to the school, so that there is no intermediaries that are involved and the corruption does not creep in. So what used to happen earlier when the direct benefit transfer was not there, the governments used to provide the money to, let us say, the intermediaries, that you are responsible for paying the in cash to certain vendors. In that case, if the school had to get, let us say, 100 rupees, they were getting merely 20 to 30 rupees. And other money was siphoned away by the various intermediaries. Now, when directly it is going to the account of the schools, now the accountability lies with the school, that how you are spending, and it is basically been spent on the cooking cost. Clear? So this ensures no leakages. Nutritional expert. A nutritional expert to be appointed in each school, whose responsibility is to ensure the health aspects, that the body mass index of the students is right, whether the food that is being provided is of a quality food in a way, and along with it, that meets the nutritional requirements also. This is a very good concept that was again incorporated in the POSHAN Abhiyan. Now, the problem when we'll discuss, we realize that this is not being implemented in every school. Rarely any school is basically implementing it. Social audit. Social audit of the scheme has also been mandated for each school, in which state to study the implementation of the scheme, which was done away by all states. So please understand, social audit where this government, or this, let us say, the state government might be sending its team to basically see whether the scheme is being implemented properly. Even in that case, we have, let us say, a lot of NGOs also, like Pratham. They also take participation in this particular of auditing, where they survey the schools and prepare an independent report and say whether the scheme is being implemented at a proper to what the core principle of the scheme should be. Let us say the scheme has to implement certain aspects with respect to menu. Are they present in the plate of a child or not? Or whether the money is being siphoned away. Is the proper infrastructure with respect to cooking is there or not, whether the money is being siphoned away or not. So these things, and auditing is basically done. That is what is important with respect to social audit. Ministry of Education will also engage schools and university students to monitor the scheme. So again, this is also being in order to have a holistic monitoring of the scheme, and implementation is what is being aimed at. Fund sharing. The center will bear 54,061 crore of the total estimation of 1.3 lakh crore. And the states will be paying 31,733 crores. And that means the state and the center both are going to contribute to bear the burden of this particular scheme. It is not a completely what we say as a central sector scheme. It is a centrally sponsored scheme where the center as well as the respective states are going to contribute with respect to the total funds. Okay, now when we talk about the problem, please understand. First is, we saw nutritional expert. This has not been implemented properly. We saw a nutritional expert should be appointed in every school. Now that has not been implemented in most of the states, because that takes a lot of extra burden on the states and they have to bear the cost. Next, we realize that second is the concept of hidden hunger. Now, because we realize the nutritional experts are also not there, our focus is on macronutrients. Focus is on macronutrients, where we realize carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. These are the three things that have been focused on. But when we talk about the micronutrients, where we talk about the vitamins and minerals, these are something which are often neglected. This is again the problem. Then we have issues of corruption, where when the tenders are given with respect to certain provisioning that has to be provided, we realize something that corruption does come in there. And that is why very often bills are generated where we realize that a lot of money has been spent on a school, but at ground level, we realize that is not true. So that means corruption is still prevalent in this particular aspect. Along with it, now please understand the core idea of the POSHAN Abhiyan, which basically incorporates the midday meal, which was earlier known as, we realize that it is a means through which we'll be attracting the students to get educated also. But the reality is that it is the government is also finding it very difficult to get the children into the school, particularly for those who are in the farming families during the, let us say, when you have to basically cut the crops, during that time the students are not coming to the school also. So the core principle of correlation between food and education, which is being seen in this scheme, faces issues. Why? Because during the time of ripening of crops and when we have to harvest it, because as the harvest season comes, the children do not come to the school. Because they act as laborers to their children or the field that is present there. So we realize these some sort of issues are prevalent. If you go back to the scheme again, you will be realizing certain things that, see, when we talk about the social auditing, we realize that a lot of emphasis has been put here, but proper social auditing is not done. 360-degree appraisal is expected. Even the Administrative Reform Commission recommends. 360-degree appraisal means at the top level, at the people who are working, and even at the lower level also, who are basically involved through various activities, should also be involved through monitoring and observation. That is not done. That is why we realize lack of proper social auditing is also a problem. Lack of proper social audit is again a major problem. So these are few other issues that you should be aware of. Next, Sambhal and the perils of judicial evasion. Topic, see over here what is being mentioned, let me tell you in very categorically. Certain words are mentioned, judicial evasion and judicial deferment, and they are given certain names of the cases. So let us understand the concept that is there. Judicial evasion and judicial deferment. This basically means that the judiciary is basically delaying the cases. See here. That means, in simple words, delay in getting justice. Defer means again to delay it. Evasion, that means it is not doing its duty, because its duty is to give justice. Not doing its duty by delaying. So delay in getting justice is what we are focusing over here. Now, how does this happen? What the judiciary might be doing? Let us say, sometimes what happens is the case is even given, let us say, you register a case or file a case that goes to the registry of let us say Supreme Court for that matter, that goes to the registry of the Supreme Court. Now, what happens is the case doesn't even come in front of the court. The case might not come in front of the court. Second thing can be the case has come and the judiciary, instead of giving the judgment, says, okay, do this, do that, and they tend to delay it. That means instead of listening to the case, certain other modalities come up. So let us say there's a problem of various issue. We'll be seeing the cases also. Issue come up and the Supreme Court says, no, form a particular body, let us resolve it and see what the observations are. and that might even hinder or escalate the issue. So what happens? A case is in front of the judges or court, but there is delay in hearing the case. Third issue also arises is with respect to the under trial cases. Over here, some arrests are made and the person is in the jail. And because that case is not coming in front of the court, that also leads to a lot of aggravation or judicial deferment where the person suffer. Unfortunately is 72% of the prisoners are under trial. You can just imagine. This is what the problem is, that the judiciary at various level, in particularly at the lower level, the condition is very bad. Even at the higher judiciary, that is the High Court and the Supreme Court, we realize that judges tend to delay it. There are other scenarios also where judges say that they're in particularly at the High Court, not even at the High Court. If you go to the lower judiciary, you will see very frequently the judges are transferred. And when the judges are transferred, then again you have to go through all the proceedings and there is delay of justice. That is why we have more than 3 crore cases are pending in India. 3 crore per cases. The high courts are working at a strength of 60 to 70%. Those are one scenario. Those are the constraints that you have, structural aspects. But this is where the judiciary themselves are delaying the cases. That is what basically creates an issue. Now, if you see over here, there are certain cases that have taken place. Let us see. The court often resorted to such jurisprudence of deferment in the earlier occasion. This is mentioned in basically this editorial. During the Shaheen Bagh protest in Delhi on the Citizenship Amendment Act or CAA, the court formed a committee to talk to protesters and try to arrive to a settlement in Amit Sahani versus Commissioner of Police 2020. Now, do you realize the court said form a committee? That committee formed, that took various months, and that led to further aggravation of the scenario. And later on, that came to the court. Then again, the courts basically discussed. They could have directly brought the stakeholders, and that is what the role of the court is. That delayed the justice, or let us say what the outcome should be, by various 5 to 6 months. So that means you are putting one hierarchy over the another, and various means are being adopted by the court, which is basically delaying the justice. This is what is being mentioned in the editorial. As we saw here, case in front of the judges, but there is delay in hearing the case. That means you basically form a body that will report and all. So this is one example. If you take another example, again, in Rakesh Vaishnav versus the Union of India 2021, when the contentious farm laws were questioned by the farmers on the street, the court constituted an expert committee to negotiate between the farmer bodies that were on protest and the center, and to create a congenial atmosphere to improve the trust and confidence of the farmers. Did you realize? Over here we see confidence building measure is being used, and where committee was formed. In this case, what should have happened is the farmer stakeholders, the government view should come, and they should have been discussed in front of the court, and court should have given the judgment. The trial, or let us say the case should have gone in front of the court. This took again months, where we realized the situation aggravated a lot, and that created problems. So what is this issue? This is basically an issue where deferment or delay is taking place from the side of the judiciary itself, because they are not taking the decision at an appropriate time that they should. This is what the editorial says. Now, that is why the concept of judicial inactivism also comes. See, when I talk about judicial activism, please say, when we discuss judicial activism, it basically meant that the judiciary becomes an activist, right? Judiciary becomes an activist. That means Judiciary tends to intervene in the work of the legislature and the executive. We often see example Article 142, where concept of complete justice is there, where Supreme Court or Supreme Court can basically revert or change any law, any aspect passed by the executive and the judiciary. But the opposite of this is judicial inactivism. Inactivism, which basically means that the court is not intervening in the cases where it should be intervening. That means the court is not intervening in the or on the issues where it should be. And that is why we realize that we saw the cases of CA protest and the farmers protest where it should be debating and discussing the issues in front of it. But again, various committees are formed that takes 5, 6, 7 months, even years. And the issue again piles up. So this is again a problem of judicial inactivism. Then comes the concept of judicial will that is mentioned. See, various judges also might be undergoing various pressure, various dimension. The concept of judicial will means that as a judge, how strong the willpower is with respect to delivering the justice, irrespective of any implication that he or she might face, because the judge has to uphold the constitution. But sometimes what happens, due to some personal aspects, you tend to delay the justice that might hamper them or they might suffer in future. So that is why the judges also, we see that do not deliver justice, they tend to delay it. Judiciary will, the judicial will basically means the willpower or the ability to give a judgment keeping the constitution in bracket, keeping the constitution as supreme. That means giving the judgment in bracket, keeping the constitution supreme, irrespective of its political outcomes. Why political outcomes? Because very often judges can be influenced by what the political outcomes might be. That is why they do not want to give the judgment, they want to delay it also. So that is why this is again the aspect that comes. So let's move ahead. Prelims topics. First is ISA, International Solar Alliance. They have basically released a report, that is World Solar Report, that is released by International Solar Alliance. So what it is? Please see, International Solar Alliance. The International Solar Alliance is an intergovernmental organization that was launched in 2015 by Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi, and the Prime Minister of France at United Nations Climate Change Conference held in Paris. Now, what is ISA? It is an action-oriented, member-driven, collaborative platform, increased deployment of solar energy technology. So in order to boost the technology with respect to solar energy, to reap more benefit of the solar energy, the International Solar Alliance was basically created. Now, ISA is guided by Towards 1000 strategy, which aims at to mobilize US 1000 billion of investment in solar energy by 2030. To deliver energy access to 1000 million people by clean solution, to install 1000 gigawatt of solar energy capacity, and to mitigate the global solar emissions to tune 1000 million tons of CO2 every year. So this is the 1000 strategy where all 1000 things are there. So this can be something that can be asked even in your prelims. So Towards 1000 strategy associated with which body? It is the International Solar Alliance. Vision, let us together make the sun brighter. This is their punchline or the key line. Mission, every home, no matter how far away, will have light at the home. Headquarters, National Institute of Solar Energy at Gurugram is the headquarter. That is important in India. To facilitate the deployment, to facilitate the deployment of 1000 gigawatt of solar energy capacity globally, these are the objectives. First, to facilitate the deployment of 1000 gigawatt of solar energy capacity. Second, mobilize more than $1 trillion of investment by 2030. 3, to develop innovative financial mechanisms to reduce the cost of the solar energy, because earlier on it used to be expensive, but now if you realize that prices have gone down because of the various initiatives that are taken. Fourth, to encourage research and development in this particular field. Fifth, to re-establish the solar energy as a mainstream of the renewable energies. Next, sixth, activities under the program are focused on 4 priority areas. First, analytics and advocacy, capacity building, programmatic support, and readiness and enabling activity. So these are basically the all holistic aspects of the International Solar Alliance. Now the governance structure, it has a assembly, which is the apex decision-making body of the International Solar Alliance. Steering committee, this is responsible for providing guidance and strategic support to the International Solar Alliance. Secretariat, again, it is the administrative arm of the International Solar Alliance, where the stakeholders are present there in order to make decisions also. Then headquarters of ISA, again headed by the Director General, where the headquarters is located at Gurugram. That is what you should be knowing. If we move ahead, code of conduct for the judges need to follow. Please understand, this topic mentions about Bangalore principles of judicial conduct, where the judges should uphold certain principles while they are giving their judgments, which even the United Nations has adopted. You can see here the Bangalore principles of judicial conduct. Now, let us see in brief what these principles are. This can be used in your paper 4 ethics also, and even in paper 2, where you have the polity and the constitution section. So what the judges' expectation values from the judges are. First, independence. That means judicial independence is a prerequisite to the rule of law, that you are an independent body and have to make decisions according to that. Second, impartiality. You should not be biased towards one person or a body, but you should be dealing in such a way that you uphold the constitutional and the values of that country. Next, integrity. Integrity is essential to the proper discharge of the judicial office. Next, propriety. Propriety and the appearance of propriety are essential to the performance of all the activities of the judge. Next, equality. Now, you have to treat everybody equally in front of the law. We have the concept of Article 14 in the Constitution, which also mentions this. This is something that should be, again, expected by the judiciary also. Competence and diligence. That means competence and diligence are, again, very important ingredients which should be upheld. That means you should be competent enough to be in that position, and then due diligence should be given while imparting the judgment. These were the, again, code of conduct. Next is lipstick effect. This is very, very interesting, lipstick effect. Now see, let us understand this. Supposingly, the income in a country of the people is decreasing, right? And supposingly there's a man, let us say A, Mr. A. And he has a wife, Mrs. A, right? Now they both basically buy luxury goods, let us say big expensive brands, big things, expensive things. So they buy what? Expensive products. Right? For example, buying shoes. Buying shoes of, let us say, worth 5 lakh rupees. One pair, right? There are brands, even like LV brands and all, right? One pair. Now what happens? Later on we realize that their income decreases. Their income decreases. Income decreases, but their attachment to luxury good is still there. So what they do is, instead of buying very big luxury goods, they still buy small luxury items, so that they are satisfied, okay, in spite of the problems, we are still able to buy these products. It is a psychological phenomena. Instead of buying those expensive things, 2 lakh rupees, one pair of shoes, they might be buying, let us assume, a lipstick. Right? Now, lipstick also, if you realize, there are various, now that would sound very funny, me discussing about lipstick, but what is important over here is, among the lipstick also, there are various brands. Among the brands, a very expensive lipstick will be, let us say, rupees 10,000. Now, among the lipstick, this is expensive, so they are buying this. That means they are buying a luxury product, a very small one. So buying this luxury lipstick will show them that they are still able to buy the luxury product that is going to give them satisfaction. So buying, still buying luxury products, but small ones. That is what happens. Lipstick effect comes is, earlier they had the money, the power to buy it, but they do not have it now. But they still buy it because they earlier used to buy a product. Now they're buying luxury products for very small scale, so that they are in a way not spending that much amount. But the product that they are buying is a luxury product itself of a smaller scale. That is why we say it is a lipstick effect. To see it properly, see. Lipstick effect describes the observation that consumers will still tend to buy small luxury items even during economic downturn. That means they still continue to buy luxury items even when they are economically in a very bad condition or poor condition. Cash-strapped consumers want to treat themselves to something that lets them forget their financial problem. By buying that product, they will forget that they have a financial problem and they'll imagine, okay, I bought this luxury product, now I means I'm in a good financial condition. It is a psychological phenomena. That means instead of being poor, instead of having problems, you're still buying a luxury product, which is psychologically satisfying you by saying that, okay, I have an ability to buy this product. So that means it is psychologically impacting you through a way that I can buy a luxury product, even in spite of the fact that you're facing financial problems. Sale of small luxury items can be used as an indicator of economic recession, based on the lipstick effect. That means if there is a lot of sale of small luxury products, that means there is a recession because people are not buying the bigger luxury products. So this is also an indicator how you use it to study the economic conditions. Let's move ahead. Topic 7, ecologist Madhav Gadgil wins the Champions of the Earth Award. Now Earth Award, please see. United Nations Environment Program's Champions of the Earth Award is United Nations top environmental annual honor that celebrates individual groups, organizations for the transformation or the contribution towards the environment. Recognizes the leaders, government, civil societies, private sector since the establishment in 2005. So since 2005, this award is being given for the contribution made by individuals, groups, even organizations in the field of the environment, sustainability and protection. Now, please understand these awards are provided under 4 categories. Under policy leadership, under inspiration and action, under entrepreneurship also, and science and innovation. Now please understand, this year award has been given to various people. You don't have to remember all this. Just written this because to tell you that these people have won. Among them, please understand, Madhav Gadgil being an Indian has won, who played a very important role with respect to the environment and environment protection. So this is one thing that you should know. Along with it, I have put the other names also. Sonia Gujrara, the Gabriel Pon, Kim, Lee Q, and Amy Bower Cordelis. You don't have to remember the other names. It is just that Madhav Gadgil has won, as an Indian has won. That is something that you should remember. Next, mental health, cybercrime, climate change, threat to human rights. The Human Rights Day is celebrated on 10th of December. That is why this discussion becomes important with respect to National Human Rights Commission. So see, what is Human Rights Commission? Please see. It is a statutory body that is formed under the Protection of the Human Rights Act 1993. Mandate. The National Human Rights Commission basically is responsible for protection and promotion of the rights relating to life, liberty, equality, dignity of the individuals guaranteed by the Constitution and embodied in the various international covenants. So the structural framework or the setup is provided by the Act of 1993 that is mentioned over here. If we move ahead, we realize that what is the structure? There's a selection committee. The President of India appoints the members of the National Human Rights Commission based on the recommendation of the selection committee. That committee includes the Prime Minister, Speaker of Lok Sabha, Home Minister, Union, Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, and Leader of Opposition. This basically committee recommends who should be appointed as a member of the National Human Rights Commission. The membership, it consists of a chairperson and 5 full-time members and 7 deemed members. Now see, a person who is the Chief Justice of India or a judge of a Supreme Court can be a chairman. 2 members, one who is or has been a judge of the Supreme Court and one who has been the Chief Justice of a High Court. 3 members, which we saw over here. One shall be a woman amongst the members. I'm having a practical experience relating to, let us say, human rights. The chairperson of the National Commission on SC, ST, minorities, backward classes, women, protection of children, and Chief Commissioner of the persons are by default the members of this commission. That is why they are known as ex officio members of the National Human Rights Commission. Again, if we move ahead, service and removal, they serve for a term of 3 years or until they achieve the age of 70, whichever is earlier. The members can be removed by the president under any of these cases if they are insolvent, that means bankrupt, if he engages in paid employment outside the duties, if he or she is unfit to continue because of infirmity of mind, if he is convicted and sentenced to imprisonment, that means the members can be removed in that case. Investigation. National Human Rights Commission investigates or complains with respect to any human right violation that has taken place. Prevention and safeguard. Please remember, National Human Rights Commission is responsible for investigating the inmates with respect to the living conditions of the prisoners and other issues that basically create problem for the human right with respect to human rights. Research. The Human Rights Commission is also along with the members and NGOs, basically works and in the field of research of the human rights. Functions. Effective implementation of the treaties which are passed, sanctioned by, agreed by Government of India. Interventions whenever there is a violation of the human rights. Visit jails and see whether the recommendation of the human rights in the Government of India have been basically implemented or not. Factors causing terrorism. National Human Rights also reviews factors that cause terrorism and what should be the remedial measures for that. Encourages efforts of the NGOs with respect to the human rights. Criticism. The recommendation that the Human Rights Commission makes are non-binding on the government. That is, the government might accept or might not accept. Powers of implementation, they do not have the power to penalize anybody. They just have a recommendatory power. Excessive judicial nature, the commission is headed by judges, and that is why it more appears like a judicial body than a one that is dealing with the human rights issues. So we need holistic participation of other stakeholders also. Limited scope of investigation, because we realize that it can only investigate cases. Let us say if 1 year passes with respect to the case, then the National Human Rights Commission cannot investigate. So within 1 year of cases filed, only then it can investigate. That means there is issue with respect to limitation with respect to the investigative power. Civilian cases, NHRC does not have the jurisdiction related to the armed forces. Only with respect to civilian cases it can investigate. That is again a limitation. Now MCQs. Question number 1. You can pause the video and just have a look. Question number 1. Options. Answer. Question 2. Options. Answer. Question 3 with options. Answer. Question 4 with options. Answer. Question 5. Options. Answer. This was the analysis of the Hindu from today's newspaper. Hope you liked it and enjoyed it. We'll be meeting tomorrow and continuing with the analysis. Take care and Jai Hind.